So the name of this workshop is How Music Critically Impacts Your Child's Intelligence. My name is Karra Buller, and I will be sharing with you today. This is an extreme passion of mine, so bear with me if I talk really fast, because there's lots that I'd like to tell you, and he's helped me very much bring it down so it's easily digestible, because I'm talking novels and not bullet points, so we'll try to stay on track today, and then there'll be time for you guys that you can ask any questions that you'd have at the end. So in about 10 minutes, we'll be picking up those surveys. If you can fill those out so you can get in the drawing, that would be awesome. All right. So a little bit about who we are. CMA is a holistic music education program that teaches music like a language, centered around ear training and incorporating piano, guitar, recorder, hand percussion, reading music, playing by ear, composition, improvisation, and ensembles. This is done in a very positive, energetic, fun classroom environment that has many tangible rewards built into our learning system. We start kids as young as 3.5, and we teach all ages. Our main program is 4.5 years. And when they graduate, they can play, compose, improvise in many genres. They on multiple instruments and have an integral understanding of music and its application, in which they can generally test out of college-level theory classes at 10 years old. So, fabulous program, and I will explain why I chose CMA. I've been teaching music for over 30 years, and private in most methods that you've seen books for, I've probably taught. I put, my older kids are in their 30s. We had a 15-year gap, and then we had another one, and we put her in CMA with Mr. Budd. And after 1 year of this program, she's not even reading music on the staff, because we teach it as a language. So if you think of that, 2-year-olds or 4-year-olds that can talk, they can tell you elaborate stories of what they did with grandma, but you don't expect them to write those down, right? Music is an expression, it's a language. They can express very complexly before they read and write it. So we teach it in that same method that you learn language. So she wasn't reading music on the staff, she's transposing, she's modulating keys, she's writing her own music already after 1 year of CMA. My older son at that point was 19.5. He'd been doing music for 12.5 years, been on recordings, was playing worship with us at church since he was 12. He wrote in college, took him about a semester, the opening bars of a sonata, which is a 3-part movement usually played by a chamber orchestra. So he wrote that, played it for our then 6-year-old twice, and she could play it. She understood intrinsically enough about how to process and express in music language that in 2 weeks, she modulated to a relative key, wrote an entire second movement, longer and more complex than his. At that point, I went to Mr. Budd and said, I cannot teach music any other way. That is why I am so convinced CMA is one of the most comprehensive and easily understood music programs that for children, well, adults too, because you get to learn right along with your kid in our program. So, I also, just to give you a little bit about me, have a degree in music and also neurological psychology. So when I saw what was happening with Jana, my youngest, I said, okay, something different in how she's learning versus how we taught our older 3 kids that we homeschool. So I started digging into the research, and that is what you get some of today. Also applied, if any of you understand the multiple intelligences theories that are out there. So I will connect it to how music critically impacts every one of those intelligences. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm kind of going to go, just touch on the multiple intelligences if you're not super familiar with it. There is verbal linguistic intelligence, using language to represent ideas, express feelings, and persuade others. Logical mathematic intelligence, reasoning, logical thinking, handling mathematical problems. Visual spatial intelligence, creating and interpreting images, thinking in 3 dimensions, understanding how things can all fit into a space, taking from like a flat into 3D. Body kinesthetic intelligence, feeling and expressing things physically, doing hands-on work, also categorizing. So taking a bunch of data and putting it into categorizing it, sorry. That is part of our kinesthetic and naturalistic intelligence. Naturalistic intelligence is understanding nature, but also seeing patterns, categorizing, classifying. Music and rhythmic intelligence, creating and feeling a rhythm. And so in all the research I've done, I feel like music is the one that actually impacts all the other intelligences versus being actually a separate intelligence. It actually connects all of them and enhances every intelligence, and I'll explain that as we go. Intrapersonal intelligence is understanding your own interior thoughts and your own feelings and being very self-aware, understanding your motivations, understanding what's driving you, being able to make decisions based on facts instead of just being emotionally driven. Interpersonal intelligence is understanding others, being able to anticipate what others need, understanding motives in other people, those kinds of things. So, first thing is we're going to talk about the frontal lobe. This is used in decision making and planning, executive function, and critical thinking skills. Music enhances these functions 5 times over peers with no music training, connected to interpersonal, logic, and mathematical intelligences. Learning music improvisation significantly increases cognitive flexibility and VAR transfer. VAR transfer is our ability to take something that we've learned, say in math, and apply it to reading. So a system and being able to apply it across multiple disciplines. 1 in 10 people do this naturally. Complex music training allows the other 9 people to become able to do that. So that's what puts people into think tanks and that high level of cognitive reasoning. And music gives them the ability to do that 38% faster than their peers. So there is quite a few engineering programs and colleges that recommend they get a music degree along with their engineering degree, because it excrementally, like they can't even quantify how much faster they're able to problem solve in real time because of the music training. So that's how critical they're even thinking at that level. Even if they've never had music training, by the end of this you'll realize the younger they start, the more dramatically it gives them those abilities, the higher increase it is. All right, so in the frontal lobe, music allows us to get into a flow state, which is that tunnel vision, hyper focusing, being able to critically think, analytically think, creatively think, all almost simultaneously. Without music, you do the analytical and then creative, analytical then creative. Music allows you to do them almost at the same time. So they're processing all of it together. And then this is, I told you, it's connected to the interpersonal, and so the emotional intelligence is interpersonal, and mathematical intelligence. The temporal lobe processes what we hear. It also plays a role in managing emotions, processing information from our senses, storing and retrieving memories, and understanding language. Music enhances the ability to interpret nuance of sound. So before the age of 8, you can hear quarter tones, which are the tones in between 2 piano keys. Piano keys are half tones. At age 8, if you haven't done ear training, you lose that ability. And the older you get, the harder and harder it is for your brain to process nuance, which is why the older you get, the harder it is to process dialects, and if they have really heavy accents, you're having them repeat themselves because you're not catching the nuance of those expressions of the language. So music, when they do it before the age of 8, they never lose that ability to hear quarter tones and overtones. So that's phenomenal. Students who learn music increase their capacity to remember 17% more of what is spoken to them than students who do not learn music. So their retention, you can give them verbal instructions and they can retain it 17% more than a child who doesn't have that music training. This is really great in help with learning disabilities like dyslexia, dysphagia, processing disorders, or ASD, because they have trouble with that processing verbal stimulus. So music increases their ability to do that and desensitizes, because they're processing sensory information so much faster in the frontal lobe. So, all right. In CMA, we start kids as young as 3.5 because we want that ear training very developed by the time they're 8, before their brain does that neural dump and loses that ability. We are in a group with parents in the classroom learning alongside their children, allows us to implement this. The temporal lobe is most active before the age of 8. So that's another reason we start that young. So some of the ear training activities that we do in class, I'll have you guys, if you want to stand up with me, have you do some ear training activities with us. We'll just do a couple just to give you a feel of what it's like in our classroom. So, Mr. Bud. So we go copycat. So he'll play and then we'll repeat. We'll copy.
All right, so you are in my classroom. I'm Mr. Bud. Say hi, Mr. Bud. There we go. You gotta put on your inner child. Okay, so you're gonna repeat after me. C, D, E, sing.
C, D, E.
Good. E, F, G, sing.
E, F, G.
Good. G, G, E, E, C, sing.
G, G, E, E, C.
Very good. You're wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you. You can sit down. I want you up and down just so you don't fall asleep. It's very dry.
No, it isn't.
All right. Brock's area. We use this part of the brain to express language. So it is tied to linguistic and interpersonal intelligences. Gives us the ability to communicate easier, 38% over our peers. So they become, because they can hear better, they're going to become better listeners. They can then repeat information. They can inflect what, motives and those things. So they become much better communicators. One study shows that because brains process music like a language, this increases their communication skills. People with better communication skills are shown to have higher level of social and emotional well-being, improving social relationships and family quality of life. So this increases their interpersonal intelligence. Now the neat thing about that is if they're learning in a complex music environment before the age of 11, they never lose those benefits. Even if they never do music again, they stay with them for the rest of their life. So that is also a really phenomenal thing. In CMA, we're teaching multiple instruments to teach and practice concepts on. This layering of learning patterns creates thicker and more robust changes in brain connections, in producing even more enhanced communication skills over traditional methods. And I watched that in my youngest child over my older three. Like her communication and understanding and ability to communicate with just about anybody about anything is so much greater than even my older kids. And they learn music, and people are astounded at some of their ways of communicating with people, even older generations in our church, and conversing with them about relevant information to that generation, not just to their own generation. But my youngest is by far beyond above my older kids in that. One reason I started digging into why is this so different. CMA is a very effective method of teaching autistic and other neurodivergent minds because it starts with the young child, and the linear method is connecting the brain centers. And there's a lot of disconnect and overfiring in neurodivergent brains. And so music, because it lights up every brain center at the same time, slows the processing, increases more connections between centers, cross-references information. So math is usually very accessible to ASD people. Now math is stored in language. Language is stored in math. Now they can access language. So I'm working with a 24-year-old autistic boy who was pretty much verbally non-existent, like duh, that's about as much as he'd expressed. So I've been working with him since September. A month ago, we were playing a simple song, and he sang it with me, and his mom about fell off her chair. And they're like, oh my gosh, what could have happened if I had got him when he was 3, 4, 5 and started working with him? Like his ability to be more invested in his world and not just outside of what's happening around him would have been tremendous. So it's very exciting. All right, Wernicke's area. This comprehends written and spoken language. We use this part to analyze and interpret meanings of sound and interact and communicate in our world. Language competence is at the root of social competence. Comprehensive music training strengthens this capacity to be verbally competent 38% over our peers. Playing an instrument also helps children process speech in noisy environments. So it helps anyone with a neurodivergent or anyone, you're in a really loud sports event and you're talking to the person next to you, you usually have to shout, right? Well, I noticed my daughter, who's done this complex training since she was 5 and she's now 15, you can whisper in that huge noisy environment and she processes it and can answer and she picks it up, and that ability to separate this from everything else and focus on it is greater. And I played music since I was 5, but I did not learn the CMA way. And so even though I have training from a very young age, her training, like she's light years ahead of what I can play, even though I've played for 48 years, just because of how it was connected and how she was trained and what it does for her. All right. So playing an instrument increases that ability to process that speech in noisy environments, more accurately interpret nuances of language. So they pick up on micro emotional expressions in verbal language that we generally miss just because we don't hear it. We don't hear those tiny little differences in inflection. And so they pick up on emotions of people and are able to infer, and so that's another reason why that communication is so much greater. So they pick up on subtlety. Again, ASD, and any other processing disorders or aphasia or dysphagia or any of those, dyslexia, that visual or verbal to written form is a very difficult thing for them. So this actually helps that because they can process that verbal information faster and easier. That allows them then to connect it to the other things. Brain centers making more connections, allowing that information to flow easier, mitigating those issues. Occipital lobe, this is where we see and place ourselves in our environment, and it is tied to category learning. We're categorizing sensory input. And musicians, actually, they show that musicians process sound visually. So their visual center is as active as their auditory center when they're processing music or any auditory input, which is really interesting because we're going to talk a little bit later about how music actually decreases or increases our ability to handle traumas and things like that. So it decreases our risk for any of your like depression, anxiety, PTSD, those kinds of things, because of what this is doing for us in processing that input and visualizing, because they use a lot of EMDR, rapid eye movement desensitization, when they're dealing with people with PTSD or anxiety disorders, and musicians pretty much do that automatically because we're visualizing, and so we're actually already doing EMDR, so that actually helps us process traumas and emotions and stuff better. Connected to kinesthetic intelligence and verbal intelligence and emotional intelligence, the interpersonal intelligences. CMA, we teach music as a language progressively. So when we are teaching sight reading in progressive stages, we are teaching in a way that makes the most sense to a child, so it becomes without conscious thought. But this transfers to other things because it's synchronizing brain centers to maximize hand-eye coordination, verbal communication, written communication, all of that. So it's synchronizing all of those things together. All right, the putnam, part of the basal ganglia, if you don't know the brain, processes rhythm, regulates body movement, motor control, muscle coordination, motor learning, executive functions, behaviors, and emotions. So a lot in that. But it's amazing how much our physical activity helps regulate our emotional well-being. So music increases our response to rhythm, regulates our circadian rhythm, so heart rate, autonomic nervous system, blood pressures, processing hormones, those kinds of things which affect emotion. It also has a dramatic effect on our ability to interpret speech, as speech is rhythmic. Rhythms also regulate emotions and behavior, and this increases our kinesthetic and spatial intelligences, as well as emotional intelligences. Learning music and rhythm reduces hyperactivity, inattention, impulsivity, while enhancing inhibitory control. So all of your neurodivergent having trouble controlling body or interpreting all of the sensory stuff, which they have to then act out to be able to release. This helps them be able to release because it can help self-calm, decreases that need to constantly be in motion, and also gives them the ability to go, this is an appropriate place to do that, this isn't an appropriate place to do that, right? So that they can process those things. These pathways become more robust and complex in children who study music before the age of 8. So getting them younger, it will always create, you could start at 50 and your brain is neuroplastic, so it will change and learn and become more robust But the younger you start, the more robust and the more complex you're going to have those connections. Music increases the connections between centers, creating a system that generates complex temporal predictions while also adapting to incoming information, increasing executive functioning skills, which is our ability to process things and make decisions and know what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, all of those things. In CMA, we use a lot of dancing to instill rhythmic expression. Be able to feel rhythm with our whole body helps them become better communicators, helps them become better musicians, helps them be able to control their, knowing where their body is, knowing how it connects in a group of other people, helps them to be aware of their self in the spatial environment and around people, helps them to know, oh, in this environment, I could just, if I need to move, I can tap my leg. This environment, oh, I can run around the playground, you know, versus I need to run around the room in a place that isn't appropriate. So CMA is teaching effectively to strengthen these complex connections and increase the executive functioning and body system controls at a greater level than traditional music methods do. Oh, well, sorry about that. I didn't see that. Cut down. Cerebellum coordinates movement and stores physical memory. It's connected to kinesthetic intelligence. Playing music strengthens hand-eye coordination and fine motor skills. Playing music is a muscle memory, but because music is connected to every brain center, now our emotional memories become muscle memories. Our language memories become muscle memories. Our any other training, science, math, that becomes a muscle memory as well. Muscle memories you never lose. You might forget who your spouse is when you're 90. You will never forget what you learned to play or how you learned to, you know, throw a baseball when you're 5 years old, because it's a muscle memory. Muscle memories are not lost. It's not in a center that is attacked by Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, any of those aging diseases. Music structure and metric organization of music activity are strongly linked to motor memory, and these high quality motor sequences are easily transferred into every other area. Again, because of sparse sampling, allowing you to take something here and applying it all over in every other area of your life. So you get increased muscle coordination 38% faster than your peers for the rest of your life, making your children better athletes. We get a lot in kids, parents are like, oh, they just want to do sports, they don't want to do music. And then I'll talk, like I have one little boy, he does hockey, thank you. It's like the sticks on the ice, I couldn't think of the word. Everybody would know what I was talking about, but lost the hockey word. And he was like, oh, it's so hard to, come, and should I just quit music because I want to focus on hockey? I'm traveling hockey team in 6th grade, so he's gone all the time. And I said, okay, if you stick with me through CMA, you're gonna be 38% faster at predicting and being able to process information on the ice to predict where your opponents are going. Hand-eye coordination is gonna be 38% faster. You will be in the top 10%, maybe even the top 1% of athletes on the ice. Okay, Mom, we're studying music, he says. Totally sold. And it's true, it really does do that. We've had a lot of testimony of that from kids that are graduating. They're the team captains. They're the one that everybody wants to, get picked first for any sports events. So it also improves general behavior, particularly reducing, again, hyperactivity, inattention, impulsivity, enhancing inhibitory control. Great for anyone neurodivergent, ADHD, dealing with any hyperactivity or impulsivity. In CMA, we do tons of music physically, so even the notes on the piano live on our bodies and we body shape. This increases our ability to hear things because we're increasing the ability to hear space between sounds. We catch rhythms, and we do connecting all of this sound to motor and muscle memory, auditory memory, increasing ear training. So I'd like you to stand up and just do a couple body shaping exercises with us. Yep, I'll shake and you just follow me. So we'll start with middle C, and C is on our waist. I'll just stand over here so you can see.
All right. Find C on your waist. C, C, C. Find D, hug a D. D, D, D. Put E on your shoulders. E, E. F on your face. F, F, F. Put G on your head. G, G, G. Okay, we're gonna make it a little harder now. C, E, G. You try. C, E, G. Okay, let's see if we can do it backwards. G, E, C. Okay, last one. Ready? C, D, E, F, G. Now your turn. C, D, E, F, G. Okay, we gotta go home. One more. G, F,
Or C.
There you go.
Nice. All right. All right. Nucleus accumbens regulates hormones, neurotransmitters responsible for cognitive, emotional, and behavioral functioning. Music increases our endorphin productions. So it regulates all of that autonomic hormones, neurotransmitters. So it increases production of dopamine, critical neurotransmitter used to regulate cognitive, emotional, behavioral functioning, increasing our ability to empathize, decreasing the production of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which leads to all of your, so high levels of cortisol in bodies leads to almost in all mental illnesses. It's in your stress disorders, it's in most others. If your body's fighting sickness or trauma and injury, your increased cortisol. So playing music decreases cortisol, increases endorphin, increases your body's ability to heal, increases your body's ability to handle emotional and physical traumas. And it actually has far-reaching, so kids who learn music when they're young show that they have a much lower, less than 50%, so 50% less likelihood of getting any anxiety disorders later in life. So that's pretty significant. All right. The amygdala. Sorry again, it popped up. Didn't look like that when I was looking them over last night. All right, this process triggers emotions connected to interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligences. So music can actually control fear, control your flight or fight. It can increase pleasure, increases the functioning and connections between brain centers. Increased centers give a person a better ability to regulate emotion, anxiety, aggression, stress responses, which is fight or flight. Memories tied to emotions, again, PTSD. So you can have a super traumatic event. Musicians would have a much less likelihood of ending up with PTSD than a non-musician because they're able to process that and regulate their body's production of stress hormones. Also, increased cognition, which is our ability to cognitively process and then share that processing with somebody else. The hippocampus produces and retrieves memories, regulates emotional responses, helps us navigate responses in relationships, considered the central processing unit of the brain. So it actually has to connect to all of the brain centers, and it can drive, which is why you see so many people driven by that emotion, forcing behavior choices that they might not make because they're angry or they're super stressed or they're whatever. So this gives you more cognitive ability in recognizing that and controlling responses. It's also one of the first regions affected by Alzheimer's, leading to confusion and memory loss. So when you have stronger connections and it's more robust, even if you have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, dementia, you have so many more connections that can take that information that it mitigates the loss of all of those functions that those diseases affect. Music increases neurogenesis because it increases the neuroplasticity or the robustness of the brain and the brain's ability to handle trauma and heal from that. Musicians have long been known to have better working memory, require less effort to perform the same task as non-musicians. So when they hook musicians and non-musicians to electrodes, they'll give them a complex task. Musicians actually have less neurons firing to complete the same task faster than a non-musician does. So it takes less brain power to complete tasks, which is why, again, it helps mitigate those diseases. They actually tracked child musicians recently through adulthood and showed that if you did 2 or more years of complex music training, decreases your risk for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia by 50% for the rest of your life, which is pretty significant. We have a lot of medical field people that come, and we'll do this program for 4.5 years if it's going to decrease their risk by that much for those diseases, because they're very prevalent in our society. Now, the corpus callosum is the white matter between the two brain hemispheres. Generally, on non-musicians, when you're born, you have 3 places that the hemispheres connect, 3 channels. Information can only travel one direction on those channels. So, learning a complex music before the age of 11 increases, and well, anytime, but before 11, it makes all of the white matter connected. So now information flows back and forth simultaneously instead of from here to here to here to here. Now it's flowing both ways at the same time, so that you can see why hand-eye coordination, is this side is controlled by this side is controlled by this side. So you have this cross thing happening. If it's flowing back and forth at exactly the same time, that is increasing your hand-eye coordination that much more. So music before the age of 11 does give make all of that white matter connected. Now, learning music at any point in your life will increase the connections in the white matter, make more and more of that white matter. But it is definitely connected. The younger you start, the longer you do it, the more connected that white tissue becomes. People who learn rhythm instruments and complex music rhythm patterns show less activity in the motor cortexes when they're doing complex behaviors or complex physical activities. This is known as sparse sampling. The more complex the brain connections, the more efficient the brain's organization, and the easier it is for them to do complex functions, which is why they can do them so much faster, which puts them in the think tank section, the top 1 to 10% of education spheres. It shows, another study shows that if you do music training, complex music training, for at least 2 years before the age of 11, you will test 107 points higher on your ACTs and SATs than peers who don't. That's huge when you're looking at getting into highly competitive college programs. We do a lot of left-right activities, a lot of complex canonic rhythm activities. The complexity of the corpus callosum is increased dramatically by doing these complex activities. So one of the things that we do, let's just do like kleiner toms, right, left, right, left.
Yeah.
So you can just do it on your knees with us. And this is some of the patterns, like one of the first patterns that we do with complex rhythm.
So repeat after me. Left, right, left, right.
Left, right, left, right.
Very good. Let's try again. Left, right, both, both, both. Your turn.
Left, right, both, both.
Good. Right, right, right.
Right, right, right.
Left, left, left.
Left, left, left.
Good. Left, right, both, both, both.
Left, right, both, both, both. Awesome. So we start with it on our knees. We do it with different rhythm instruments. We get to where different rhythm instruments are doing different patterns. And then in the final year, we'll do a canonic where we start one, the next person does that one while we do a different one, and it travels around. Kind of like telephone, but with rhythm. And each time, each repetition, they add a new rhythm. So that increases the complexity of the motor cortex dramatically. We have the gray matter. One of the first studies when I was researching all of this is one of the first studies that I hit on, and this is super exciting. So musicians, they've always known that they seem to have a larger brain volume. They can take pictures, they can see, there's larger volume. They didn't understand why until about 7 years ago. And they did this, created an MRI room, a room that was an MRI machine, created a special piano that wouldn't interfere electrically with the MRI imaging. They put a musician, hooked him up to electrodes, played all sorts of music, simple music, complex music, patterns, and then did musical jazz improv. And when he did musical jazz improv, they caught the creation of a brain cell in real time. As far as science knows, jazz or any kind of musical improvisation is the only thing where you drive the creation of a cell in your body. So when I tell my 5-year-olds, you get to make your brain bigger by doing this, because improvisation is really, it's a hard thing. because there's no right or wrong, and there's no parameters, or very few parameters. Hand in this position, don't move your hand, and that's it. Now make up a melody and sing while you do it. And they're like, what? But then I share that with even the 5-year-olds, and they're like, okay, how do I do it? Because I want more brain cells. You know, even 5-year-olds recognize more brain cells means I'm smarter. So that is phenomenal. It's the only thing they know that does that. So increasing brain matter, gray matter, it's responsible for all your processing, retrieving connections between centers. So increasing that volume increases spatial temporal reasoning, increases spatial patterns, increases our ability, pretty much every ability that we have. It connects to every single intelligence because you're increasing the connections between them, you're increasing the robustness of your brain, all of those things. So very phenomenal. CMA is one of the, the only program that I know that really does improvisation. And we start with very simple improvisation, such as question and answer.
Yeah.
So like this.
Are you very special? And they create it. Yes, I'm very special.
So we start with a question and answer. Very simple. They're just responding. And then it goes to them. We play, Are You Very Special? So play one.
Are you very special?
And then a student with their hand in C position would just make up their own.
Yes, I'm very special.
Like that. And they do that. We do lots of things. When Will Spring Come Again is a great one when it's cold and nobody wants it to be cold anymore. And then they make it up while they do it. And every time they're doing it, they're creating more brain cells. They're creating, but it's increasing their creativity, increasing the frontal lobe's ability to connect analytically with creative thought. So it's phenomenal. And CMA does improvisation so amazing. So I didn't really start doing jazz kind of music until I started teaching this program 8 years ago. My daughter, who started doing it with just that question and answer because she went through CMA, started at 5, she can improv for hours all over the piano. I'm just gonna go play. Like, wait, I'm just gonna make something up. And then I'll be like, you need to do the dishes. Okay, but I'm still playing. Yeah, it's been 4 hours. Oh, what? Because she's just lost in that creation and that stuff. And that's phenomenal because I don't even have that ability because I just started that as an adult and it was really hard. It's getting easier 8 years later, but not just flawlessly without thought that my daughter does it. And we have, if you stop by our booth, there's a couple other past students that are in our booth working with us this weekend, and they do the same thing. They can just create, just flawless, just improvise out of there without thinking about it, just play and sing whatever comes to mind, and it's just phenomenal. So, as you can see, in CMA, it is so comprehensive that it is connecting everything with every intelligence. We use all their whole body, if they're verbal, if they're auditory, if they're kinesthetic learners. We use their entire body to teach music. We even use taste. We use all their senses because we use taste to reinforce things in the classroom. And so they're getting different treats. And even to this day, one of them is a graham cracker treat when we do chords and our C chord. And my daughter still, when she opens graham crackers, she goes, because that's our C chord notes. And it just triggers because taste is one of the strongest response memory indicators. So it's very phenomenal that. Brain studies show the extent of the anatomical change in a musician's brain closely related to the age they start, the length and intensity of the training. So the younger they start, the more comprehensive the training, the greater all of these benefits are going to be for them. In fact, it shows, they've actually said that you could teach someone from 4 to 10, they never take music again, and then you start somebody at 10 and they do music for the rest of their life. The student who did music from 4 to 10, their brain structures are going to be way more complex and more robust for the rest of their life versus someone who starts at 10 and does it for the rest of their life. So phenomenal how important that younger brain is to the complexity that you can do it. Not that you should start, if you haven't done music yet with your kids, no matter their age, start them because it's going to increase all of their abilities across the board. There's the greater abilities. That's why we start CMA at 3.5. is because that gives them the maximum amount of benefits that they can get from learning. CMA teaches music as a language, again, holistically incorporating every element needed for maximum benefit for your child's education and brain development. So I would like to, did we collect those? Thanks, let's collect those. If you haven't filled it out, do that really fast. Let's collect those. And then I'm gonna open it up for questions. I have this much more research that I didn't go over. So we are in the process of creating a podcast and actually breaking this into half sheet or one-page PDFs that you can learn and go as deep as you want to in getting this information. We're working at getting that set up and had a lot of requests to go deeper into, because I could quote 30 studies per brain center, and there was a couple brain centers I didn't touch on that are also incorporated, part of the amygdala basal ganglia center. There's 2 other parts in that I didn't actually touch on, that do some other specific things that music also enhances. So, questions?
We have that video.
Oh, sorry, yes, I do. Thank you, because I couldn't figure out how to put it in my presentation. But I do. This is from one of our past students, and it kind of incorporates everything we were talking about.
My son Dylan is 10 years old and has been participating in Children's Music Academy since he was little. It has been a joy watching him participate in learning new music. Dylan has always been musical, finding a beat or singing along since before he could even talk. This is why he started piano lessons at the early age of 4. Dylan has autism, so at first he was struggling with the noise and the overwhelming music class. He hid under the table a lot during class and refused to participate. However, Dylan was always listening, so he could still find the beat or recognize the song. He often went home and could perform the song he heard while hiding under that table. We have a lot of music toys at home, and Dylan very quickly learned how to play the real songs on these toy instruments. The music was always in his head, and with the help of music lessons and ear training, he had no problem transferring that into song. I enjoy watching Dylan learn a new song. He looks at the piano and will think about what key to press before pressing the wrong key, because he can hear it in his head if it's correct or not. He is able to think ahead and play the correct key. Dylan's confidence grew at amazing lengths for music lessons. He started out refusing to play in front of anyone, but as he learned more music, I could literally see his anxiety melt away as he was excited to show off the next song he learned. Dylan is now so confident playing piano that he enjoys playing recitals and in any public place that has a piano available.
I've been playing piano and taking music lessons for so long that I can play national style piano and some other instruments too. Music in school has gotten super easy for me. I'm excited to play new instruments when I get to middle school, and I know I will always play lots of music for the rest of my life.
an idea, that arabesque song that I played at the end, I learned when I was 19. And I had played music since I was 5. But I didn't have in traditional music lessons the ability to play that song until I was 19. He's playing it at 9. So that's...
And 30% faster than
Yes.
it's supposed to be.
Right. Yes, exactly.
You have about 10 minutes per question.
Perfect. I do want to answer these in case you're wondering. I did mention them in there, but in case you didn't get it. Taking comprehensive music training increases a student's hand-eye coordination 38% over their peers for the rest of their life. Taking comprehensive music training increases a student's verbal processing, ability to process stimulus, environmental stimulus, executive functioning, the ability to plan, organize, strategize, and problem solve, 5 times higher than their peers. Taking comprehensive music training decreases a student's risk of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia by 50% for the rest of their life. So we are going to draw 2 of these today, and if you stop by the booth and come to a free class, you will get free enrollment for one of your children, which is a $95 value. Covers all the materials for the first 2.5 years of our program. So I will draw those and record them or say the names at the end. There is one question here. I just noticed, are those recorded or online options for those who don't live close to our studios? Yes. We can set up a time to talk through that. Come to the booth, sign up, and when we reach out to you, I can connect, and we have lots of options. So just know that that's available. If there was a question that you wrote on these that I haven't answered or you didn't feel was answered in the speech, if you want to talk about or give me your questions and that would be awesome. Any questions?
Where are you located then, physically?
Right now, we have our main studio in Brooklyn Park. We're going to be opening a studio in the southern part of the metro area as well. Yeah, we had a lot of families from this area, so it'll be more easily accessible to you guys down here. So that's our goal is for September. So definitely want to have you come, get you to come to a free class to experience everything, get all your questions answered, and then you'll be doing that studio in the southern part of the cities. We do have people in Wisconsin that drive to Brooklyn Park because it's not, it's less than an hour for them or about an hour. We have people in Superior, Wisconsin that come down twice a year and then do it through a Zoom. So we have hybrid classes, some are on Zoom, some are in person. During COVID, we were the only studio that we understand stayed open musically during COVID, and our students continued to thrive, and we even did recitals through Zoom, and yeah. So, another question? Yes, go ahead.
Can you start at any age then?
Yes, yep, so we'd like to start them as young as, we'll start them as young as 3.5, but yes, we'll take any age and teach that to them, and so, yes. Here's one. Does singing do the same for the brain as playing an instrument? Singing will increase brain neuroplasticity, but you don't get the same thing because you're vocalizing rhythms, but you're not creating complex rhythms with your body, your whole body, and a lot of the things for especially neurodivergent need that body expression to increase the neuroplasticity in the brain center. So it does. Any music is going to increase for them, right? The more complex, the more intense it is, the younger you start, the better the benefits. So I wouldn't say stop doing vocals, but if you want to maximize them, get them into a music training program. And they'll understand and actually will increase vocally, because especially if there's ear training in the program, or if you start CMA, they'll get that ear training. We have a couple schools that send their junior high and vocalists to us because the kids who are in choir have such a better ear, and they can read the music, and they're training their own sections, like they can play the section, they can teach their sections, even in vocals. So they're sending kids to CMA because they haven't had that experience. Other questions? Yes?
Do your parents attend with the children? If I have 3 kids, all different, like 3 to 9, could they all start together?
Yes, we can have them start together. We would, there's certain ages, that we would break up just because they're different developmentally, but we do have a lot of homeschool families that will have an older child in with the younger kids because they're used to being in an learning environment with younger kids, and so it doesn't bother them at all to do that. So we just talk through logistics with you and decide what's the best way for all your kids to get the benefits and how do we do that so it works for your family.
The parents can attend as well.
And the parents attend, yep. Until the last year of the program, the parents are in class with them. So if you don't know music, you get to learn it right alongside your kid. The other thing that's really amazing about having the parents in the classroom is that, so we taught my older kids music, and Jane went through CMA, and I sat in the class with her. It wasn't my way of learning, it was Mr. Budd's way of learning, teaching music. So I had to play the music at home with her the way we did it in class, not maybe how I learned how to do it. And that created we had an equality in that music creation environment because I wasn't the teacher. I'm just helping facilitate what they'd already learned and practice with her. And that deepened my relationship with her in a way that I don't have with my older kids because I'm always the teacher and I'm always the instructor and I'm always the disciplinarian. With Jane, I had this place that I was equal. And it was amazing. And so we get to give that to you as parents. Do students learn to read music as well? Yes. So they're gonna learn to read. Their sight reading is, like, when Jane graduated from master's, her sight reading music is way above where my sight reading is. And you're usually you play by ear or you read music. I was very much to the page, didn't learn to play by ear till I was 22, and don't play by ear super well, but this CMA trains you to play by ear, read music equally well. You're learning both arenas, and the sight reading when they leave is phenomenal. Does singing, that one I already answered. Another one. What can I do as a music teacher to help kids, specifically my daughter who's 8? If you want to stop by the booth, I can kind of go into that with you in a little more detail. And if you are a music teacher, we are looking for teachers. So I'd love to talk to you about that. If you view a class, you will fall in love and be like, this is the only way I should teach music ever in my entire life. So from what you give the kids. But it's a pretty in-depth conversation because where you're at, what you have taught, how can I help you facilitate that better? So stop by the booth and connect with me or Mr. Budd today or tomorrow. Any other ones that didn't get answered?
You want to maybe share what the free class is about?
Oh yeah, so when you stop by the booth, we're not having you enroll your kids, we're actually inviting you to come to an introductory class. So you're gonna your kids get to experience our classroom, do some fun musical activities, see how it is that we're teaching it. And you'll actually be able to really see why is it different than maybe how you learn music, if you have learned music in your past. And then get all your questions answered as far as cost and what's gonna work for my family, how do we sign up, all of those questions get answered. But we want you to come experience, because if you haven't experienced CMA, any other musical understanding or what you thought about music is it doesn't fit, because it's so radically different until you experience it. You don't fully understand, like, why is this so good? So we want you to come experience it with us. So basically you're signing up at the booth just to have us contact you and set up a time for you to come visit and see what we are and how we work and get your questions all answered. So, anybody else?
Maybe if there's any more of these that we didn't get.
Anybody else that we
Say
haven't
what we're doing with these.
connected that you haven't filled them out that you want to get in the drawing?
Enrollment. Drawing.
Yeah. So we will draw 2, and if you do end up signing up with us, you will get free enrollment, which is a $95 value for at least one of your children. So.
We have it.
Kelsey Bang. Awesome. All right. So I will mark that down. All right. All right. All right, Patty, W-A-S.
Won the last game.
Thank you. I knew the ski part, but I didn't get the rest. Okay, awesome.
Sure we can do it.
Okay, he says we'll do one more. He's the owner. I just work for him.
not just.
Okay. Martin Leinbach? Awesome.
So these will be good for enrollment, and if you don't not personally have children and want to share it with someone,
Yep.
then you let us know.
Yeah, you can let us know that too. All right. Anything else? Any other? Yes.
Are people take piano lessons and your program, or like any type of lesson with your program at the same time?
They have. So in our program, they're going to learn piano very well, but they learn all the hand percussion, guitar, and recorder. So guitar is going to set them up to be able to play any stringed instrument and understand how all of that applies to a stringed instrument. Doing recorder sets them up to be able to apply all of that music understanding to any woodwind, brass instrument. So they're very easily able to take sheet music and apply it to. One other story I would love to share at FIC's is we had a gal who graduated at 9.5, and then she was in 7th grade last year or a year ago, and she was playing viola, and her orchestra teacher had to be in the hospital for a week. And they introduced the song they were going to learn when he got back from the hospital, that they were going to play in their spring recital. And so she learned her part over the weekend because she can play it on the piano, and then she played it, and she can tune her own viola, and she just plays really well because she has a really good trained ear. Her section on Monday said, "Can you teach us?" She asked the sub, who of course didn't know anything about music, said, "Sure." And she trained her section. All the other section leaders said, "Can you help us?" By the time he came back in a week, she had taught every section in the orchestra their part. And she actually directed them, and it wasn't perfect or anything, but she directed it from his score. He's like, "Where did you learn music? Nobody, even my high schoolers, could do that." So that is the comprehensiveness of what they leave CMA with. So, but yeah, we do have students that come to CMA to fill out all of that, and we have one student who's learning Moonlight Sonata and has done CMA, came to learn CMA, and his private teacher is like, "How are you advancing so fast? Because I'm not, I'm still teaching you the way I always teach you, and yet you're jumping all these places. Like, I don't even do this stuff with my seniors in high school."
And I've had a homeschool family who we met here at MACHE conference. Their oldest kids had went all the way through the Faber books, all the way to probably 4 or 5. They still came back and backed up, and I sped them through CMA because they had so many gaps in theory understanding. Just even, and Faber is some of the best theory you can get, and they still have major gaps that CMA filled in. So we can probably help you in one way or another if your student's already been doing this.
And sometimes we can not start them at the beginning, like he said, we fill in the gaps and then get them into grad year where they're doing complex.
Yeah, we moved quickly
Yeah.
through
Yep,
something.
and then they do it, and they loved it. They loved how much it gave them, even though they'd had these years of other training. So, yes, and we are out of time. Anything else? Please stop by the booth and ask us, and we'll fill you in. Thank you so much.